Okay, it's Saturday the 20th of November 2021. I'm in the East Dunes, the Oostduinen, just outside the Hague. I'm doing a long easy run today, about 22 kilometres. So this is part of my training program at the moment to get me back up to half marathon running. Very pleasant. It's very overcast, as you can probably see, but it's about 12 or 13 degrees, which for late November is incredible. A little bit of a breeze, but not too much. As I said, long easy run today, and I've been doing this program. This is the end of week 7. I run 3 times a week, doing accelerator drills, cadence drills, cadence repeats. That's about increasing your stride speed or your feet speed, and then 800 metre intervals, either pace intervals, which is running at the pace that you're targeting for your half marathon. So that's 800 metres. Then you have a cool down or recovery 3 minutes while you walk, and then you go at it again and just do various, 6 to 8 repeats of that. Fast drills where you go that bit quicker up your pace by 20 to 30 seconds per kilometre pace, and do 800 metre repeats of that. So that's my training program, and then I do things like hill repeats as well every fortnight, every 2 weeks. It's basically running hard for short intervals up a hill, then walking and then running down, just to get into that pace and that change of pace you go through when you hit hills. So all to build endurance. So that program, normally a half marathon program, if you're doing it right, will take something like 12 weeks as a minimum, so up to 3 months, and about 18 weeks if you really want to kind of lock in that endurance. So this one I'm doing is 18 weeks, so I've got another 10-11 weeks of that program to go, which will take me up to the start of the new year. Not to be taken lightly, these longer distances. Marathon, normally that's a good 18 weeks of training, or when I've done it anyway, and you need that just to build. It's not just endurance into your muscles and your limbs, but it's also things like your back and your hips and your arms even. They don't do much, but they do the same thing again and again for hours on end, so they've got to get used to that. And then of course the really vital one when you do any kind of distance, once you're doing about more than 45 minutes running, is diet and nutrition. And you've got to get used to feed and find something that works for you. And the only tried and tested way of doing that is practice. So you actually literally have to practice eating, learning what works for you, what you like, what tastes you like, and so on. So I'm mainly on liquid nutrition today. I've got my tailwind in water, which is full of nutrients and carbs and protein and so on. So that's me for the day. So yeah, nice long run to do, a couple of hours, and then I'll head home. So I'm at the Ganzenhoek, so coming up to the halfway point. I've done about 10k so far, keeping it nice and easy, not quick at all, quite slow today. Here the wind's got up a little bit as I've got a bit higher and facing the sea. It's definitely got a bit more misty, rainy as well, and got dark. It's getting dark very early. It's just 3:15 at the moment, and Sunset doesn't start till 4:45 today. So another hour and a half of daylight before it gets into twilight. So yeah, definitely overcast and getting darker. But plenty of people around still, walking and cycling, and some runners. Not so much in the long stretches there, but as you get closer to places you get a few runners. So just a quick update on the pandemic situation here, or the epidemic in the Netherlands. So cases have been rising quite markedly over the past few weeks, and it carried on last weekend. The record number of new infections for a day was exceeded, so a new record was set, unfortunately. That's the highest since March earlier on this year, 2021, and that hit about 21,000. Since then it's been bobbling around 20, 21, 22, I think got 23 on Wednesday, 1,000 all this week, which led to some people unfortunately assuming it plateaued, got really high. So that, you know, that's like a rate of about 110, 120,000, 120 per 100,000 population. So it's really high, twice as high as the UK, for instance. But the reason it looks like it's plateaued is basically because they've exceeded their test capacity here. So really quite unfortunate. Apparently the health services were inundated with calls for people who wanted tests and just couldn't get them. The centres are inundated, so they basically hit capacity. So that's all that 22,000 infections is telling us, is they can't measure anymore because they haven't got enough tests or testers. So very high here. Also in other parts of Europe, Germany went over 50,000 middle of the week for the first time. Germany have always been very good. Their contact tracing system seems to work very well, their containment, if you like, of outbreaks. But that's obviously not working now. And there's certain regions like Saxony where they've had very low vaccine uptake, less than 65%, and there the infections have really taken off. Now the country that's really marked, and certainly in terms of what it was trying to do about it, is Austria. So they peaked very highly over the last 2 weeks. They started off by saying, well, we've got to increase our vaccination level because it's below 65% still, and in some regions even lower. So they introduced the so-called 2G policy. So at the moment in the EU, there's 3 criteria you can have, and that gives you a corona pass, as it's called, or the ability to go into restaurants and bars and things like that. And the 3 criteria are vaccinated, recovered from an infection, from being infected, or you've had a negative test in the last 72 hours. And they basically dropped that last requirement, essentially saying, unless you've had the infection and recovered, verified recovery, or you've been vaccinated, we want you to stay at home and basically go out only for essential purposes. That lasted a week and the infections were still going up, so they've now gone for a lockdown. So I think they're the first country in Europe to have some kind of a lockdown this autumn. So basically you can only leave home to get essentials and to exercise. Now the Netherlands, it keeps getting called a lockdown. It's not, I wouldn't call it that. It's certainly restrictions. So restrictions that came in a week ago now is that the shops and restaurants close by 8 o'clock. In fact, non-essential shops close earlier. Hello. and supermarkets, restaurants and bars all have to close by 8 o'clock in the evening. And then if you want to go into a restaurant or a bar, you have to show your Corona pass to go in there. And actually non-essential shops, so things like clothes shops, anywhere that's not selling food or medications, you have to show a pass as well to go into. And must wear a mask in the shops as well. So that was a reimposing of the mask. They dropped that very quickly, plus the distancing. I must say, the mask has come back. You still get a few people not wearing them in shops, but Dutch don't seem to be particularly interested in stopping anybody, or at least querying them. But the distancing is really not being adhered to at all. So I'm about 12k in, and the weather definitely looks like it's starting to close in. But I have done my turnaround loop, so it's a straight shot back to the entrance to the park, to the dunes now. So about 9 kilometres to go to head back. But it's definitely got windier, a lot more moisture in the air. It's not raining properly, but it seems like it's trying to. There's certainly a lot of mist in the air. Anyway, still it's a pleasant day for running, very gentle. The colours are nice. It goes well into autumn, so lots of colours in the trees as the leaves start to turn and drop. So yeah, another hour to go. Right, it's 22 kilometres down. You can see it's getting pretty dark already, so we're still about half an hour off of sunset. So the clouds closing in really has kind of made it dark very early today. Anyway, still pretty pleasant. Amazing for as I've already said, for a late November day. Yeah, I can feel the ache now through my knees predominantly, so they'll now have 2 days of recovery, and I'll do a physio session on Monday. So I go to see a physio once a week at the moment, and do about a 45-minute session working on my knee strength, build that back up, and then I repeat those exercises twice a week. So on my other off days when I'm not running, I do that, and that seems to be paying dividends, because there's no way I would have done a half marathon a month or two ago, certainly. So it really is paying dividends. Okay, almost back at my bike, so I've got a little cycle home now, about 3.5 kilometres, so not bad, although when you've got tired legs it feels like a lot further than that. So yeah, very pleasant evening now really, even though it's still the afternoon, and in the East Dunes.